I got to wrestle Bruce Hart 5 nights in a row. And I'll tell you a funny story. The first night I wrestled Bruce, uh, I was taking it really easy on him, because he's an older guy and I was trying to show him some respect. So I was being nice and light. And at a point, we were in the corner and I was, you know, just kind of giving him a little bit of heat, and he flipped it around on me and he kicked me in the balls like as hard as he could. And I gave him this look. I know it must have just been shock because I couldn't understand why he just kicked me in the balls so hard. And it was the toe of the boot as well, so it hit me like right in my taint, like it hurt bad. And I went down. I grabbed my crotch and I went down, and he went to grab my feet and spread my legs to give me another stomp to the groin. And I was like, fuck that. Now I'm not trusting you anymore. So I rolled out of the ring. I kept my legs together and I rolled out of the ring. And I was like, dude, all I could think was, I'm going to fucking give you a receipt now, old fella. Like, I don't care. You might be the Hearts, you might be one of the Hearts, but you just kicked me in the balls. And I'm going to show you right now that I'm a fucking professional. Watch this. So he comes over and I fucking boom, I punched him in the face. I didn't hit him in the nose because I didn't want to fuck shit up, but I gave him a good one in the side of the face. And when I hit him, he went, oh, and he went, yeah, okay, all right. And then I threw him in the ring and I started fucking nailing him, and everything I did was solid after that, real solid. And in the locker room, I asked him, I said, dude, what did I do? Why did you kick me in the balls? And he said, well, you were disrespecting me. And I said, disrespecting you? I said, well, how was I disrespecting you? And he goes, you were treating me like an old man. He goes, you weren't fucking hitting me. He goes, you were touching me real light. You were being really easy with me. He goes, that's disrespectful. And he goes, then did you notice once you started fucking nailing me because you were pissed? He goes, did you notice that's when the people started throwing cups and paper and shit? And I was like, yeah, I did notice that, because there was a definite change in the crowd. What happened was, before I started really beating the shit out of him, people were booing me. After I was beating the shit out of him and they saw when I would hit him, they saw the sweat flying and they saw the welts and they could see the impact. Once that started happening, they were no longer booing me. They were saying, I'm going to fucking kill you, you piece of shit, you fucking piece of shit, California. Like, all these really nice Canadians were really getting very angry with me, and it was because they saw that whether wrestling's real or fake, what they were seeing right now was real. What I was giving to them, especially on the floor, was legitimate, and Bruce at a point, Bruce says, throw my head into the post. So I threw his head into the post and he fucking hit his head on the post, man. And he had a cut when he hit his head on the post. And either he used a blade really quickly or he got it the hard way. I'm pretty sure it was the hard way, because it had a knot, where he hit it, and it was cut and he was bleeding good. And then for the rest of the nights, every night, all I had to do, because he would super glue it, and then I would just punch him really hard in the head and knock that super glue loose, and his cut would open back up. So it was really very believable fights when I'd start pounding on his head, and the people didn't see no blood. And then all of a sudden, I keep hitting him, and then after like the fourth or fifth time, now blood's starting to come down. People were very pissed. They didn't like that, and I had a great time. Interesting, people always talk about socialized medicine and how you have to wait in Canada and all this bullshit. So the next morning, I was peeing blood and from being kicked in the balls, and so I called one of the guys that was kind of helping me out, and I asked him if he'd take me to the hospital, and he did. They took me to the hospital, and they checked me out and said that it should stop within a couple of days, and they didn't see any ruptures or anything, and so I was seen immediately that day. There was no waiting.
It's a triage here in Canada when you got a serious injury like that. You usually, hopefully, don't wait too long.
Here with former Stampede wrestling manager Blue Rizal. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be in Vegas with the rest of the boys and seeing you here, Hannibal, and quite the turnout, isn't it? I guess
it's not too bad tonight.
Are you interviewing a lot of guys?
A lot of guys.
Unfortunately, nobody came down this year, like the likes of Jerry, Morrow, Gamma saying, but some of the hearts are here. As I saw you interview Diana yesterday, and Ross is here. And that's about really it. Like at one time, we used to all come down from Calgary. There's some guys here from Edmonton, but and the Maritimes. I don't know if you saw them or anything like that, but otherwise, I like to come here. Like I don't like missing it. It's camaraderie, I guess you would call it, and I guess you'll see a lot of footage tonight, with all them.
What do you think about Gamma getting another shot in Impact Wrestling?
I think it's great for Gamma. I just talked to Gamma yesterday. We're supposed to be doing a charity show up in Red Deer, and I was talking to him about it. But Gamma, he's they're not bringing him down that often. They bring him down like once a month, and they do apparently like 12 shows, 12 TV tapings at a time. And right now he's managing those Indian guys. Though I don't know. I met him once here a long time ago, but don't really know him. But Gamma, he's happy. It's pretty good to get a shot at 62 years old.
Yeah, it's great for him. And for those that aren't familiar with you, who are some of the wrestlers you managed? Well, I know you managed Abdullah against me once.
I did, yes, that was in Calgary, but I
actually managed the Karachi Vice.
I did. I was the Karachi Vice. I'm also
Jinder Mahal, for those that don't know. I did,
and I've actually, with him and Gamma's kid, I've managed them a couple shows. I've also managed Hardy Race when he came up, Lethal Larry Cameron, Mike Shaw, Rip Rogers, basically a lot of the heels that came up from from 86 up to 89. A lot of I managed a lot of the heels. Even Barry O, the Zodiac, when he brought him up. Bruce actually had me managing a lot of people, but mainly with the Karachi Vice. Those are the days.
Yeah, that was a really over angle. For those that don't know, you guys had a lot of heat back then.
We did. We had a lot of heat. And then Davey and Dynamite came back in '89, and Dynamite took over the book. He brought Morocco, once against Morocco. He brought a lot of the guys that just, unfortunately, it didn't pan out. Stu shut down shortly after.
What was it like with Dynamite in charge? Because I heard those were some pretty crazy days.
There were. He was no nonsense. You do as you're told. If you're not, either you get punched out or get kicked out. He was, as you know, Tommy wasn't liked by a lot of people. You know what I mean? But he was liked by lots. But I think my favorite guy to work was with Bad News Allen. He was great. God rest his soul. Allen was great. He looked after you. He looked after you. And I worked against a lot of good baby faces. Most of them are gone. They passed away. Like Owen, Pillman, Wellington, Benoit. I keep in touch with Jerry. Cuban taught me a lot.
How is he doing these days?
Cuban's doing good. Cuban's doing well. Like, he's had a couple of strokes, but you know what though? He's still mobile. He's still doing good. He taught me a lot. Cuban taught me a lot. And always got me involved in the finishes and all that. Jerry was great. Jerry Amora was awesome. We had a good crew. If you're in the clique, we were into. Oh, there's Bob Johnson there. But thank you for your time to give me the interview, Devin. And I've always liked working. I loved working for you down at those 2 shows that had in Calgary. And you're looking great still, dude.
So you spent some time in Stampede wrestling when you started, right?
Yeah, that was horrible. I was not speaking English at all. I started wrestling at the age of 16 at Deloitte for 2 years. I had maybe 3 victories in 2 years. I was jobbing every weekend. And I got pretty discouraged, so I wanted to get out of there and try to make make a name for myself. And I really wanted to hit the road. So I was trying to call Stu. I had my friends who was bilingual at the time, and it was telling me some words what to tell him, but I was really bad, so I just decided to buy my own ticket and flew there, and with no English at all, it's nothing, and I got to the.
And there's not many French people in Calgary or Alberta.
Not that many, and I went to Stu. And I said, yeah, Stu, I'm a wrestler. Maybe me wrestle tonight. And he showed me the bathroom. He said, not yet, kid, So I figured that he was telling me to go have a shit or something, because he didn't talk very long to me, and he didn't show me the dressing room where I could get changed and have a match. So it was horrible.
Did they offer to train you at all? Or?
After a while, but what I was doing, I found a little family, a poor family, with the Salvation Army. So it was cheap for me to stay there for like maybe $30 per week, and I stayed with them. And every Friday I was going to the Stampede, and then they were telling me no, but they were ribbing me. Take your bag and go to Edmonton. We might have a guy that won't show up or is going to be injured, so we might use you there in Edmonton. So I would take the bus for 4 hours, go to Calgary to Edmonton. Then in Edmonton, I would go see Bruce or any
Was
one
Bruce
of the
the
boys.
booker then?
Yeah, Bruce is the booker. And then they were telling me, no, but maybe next Friday in Calgary. So they had me going back and forth Edmonton and Calgary. And eventually, Bruce got fed up with me showing up all the time, so he offered me like a tryout in the afternoon with a green boy, another guy. And I thought I did pretty well, but he was trying to sell me a school for $3,000.
Yeah.
And I totally refused because I had the base, I just needed to work, and I said no. And he told me that I was never gonna make it, that I was bad and the shits, whatever. And I eventually left and I came back.
Was Chris Benoit there at that time?
Yeah, he was one of my favorites on Calgary Stampede. He was my age, and he was like 17, 18, and he was one of the top boys with Owen. Owen and Chris, they were like really a good tag team there, and even in singles, and they were working against a team from Viet Cong Express, and they were having some great match, and they had the whole Viet Cong thing. Makon Singh was...
Oh, the Karachi Vice?
Yeah, Karachi Vice, Makon Singh, and the other Indian guy.
Gamma
Singh, and I mean, and then you have the 2 strong men that were there too, Bill Kazmaier and Ted R-City. And after we saw R-City on WWF, but it didn't really make an impact there, but it was
He had a
impressive.
memorable appearance on Piper's Pit.
And the only guy who really took care of me in Calgary was Kerry Brown. Like, he felt kind of he was human, you know. He was trying to help me out. He told me, he said, don't stay here. They're not gonna use you. They're just fucking with you, and you know, just try to go somewhere else, get more experience, and maybe eventually you'll be able to come back here. But he was really nice to me, Kerry Brown. And that's what I did. I came back to Montreal after 4 or 5 months of trying there in Calgary, and nothing happened. And I was really kind of depressed.
As far as Canada, where I'm from, you were wrestling in the Maritimes and Calgary, where you were over in both places. Did you like one of the two territories better?
Now, I love Calgary. Calgary was the greatest territory I ever worked. I mean, it was great. Stu Hart was great. Most of the Hart boys was great. Some of them I had a little problem with, but it didn't take long to straighten that out. But I know Bret Hart. We had a bunch of knockdown dragouts, and he could take care of himself in the ring, and people didn't realize that he could take care of himself that good. I told him, I said, hey, this boy done been put through all that stuff y'all talking about. His daddy done tied him up and tied him in knots and everything. They didn't realize that, you know. But Brett was a tough guy. He could take care of himself. And what I'm saying is these guys would misunderstand him. He's a good, nice, talking guy, friendly guy. But if he gets you in the ring, he might just put your head where you don't want it. And he can do it.
How did you find the booking of that territory? Did you like the way that Stu booked the matches, or was it one of the boys booking at the time you were there?
I didn't know who was booking, really. I never found out. I knew it was one of the boys, one of the Hearts, and then another one of the Hearts, and then I think it was Stu, and then I didn't know if Stu was calling the shots or not, because Stu was more like my type of guy, tough guy. You know, he loved tough people and people that could take care of themselves. Stu Hart loved them, you know. But some of the Hart boys would be booking, they said, and they would book matches that I don't know why or how. Excuse me, had a hiccup there. I don't know why or how they would book these matches, but they bring people in from like Dynamite Kid when he come in, Davey Boy Smith. You know, they didn't weigh 175 pounds, and you know, all of a sudden he's a monster. You know, but me and Dynamite had some super matches, and you know, most of the time in the matches in Calgary, we kind of made up our own way to go. They would give us a general idea on the entertainment prospect of it, but we would change it if we wanted to or we felt like we needed to. You know, it's all what the fans are wanting. Sometimes you get out there and the fans, you got to do other things to get the fans to that point where they hate you. Well, I don't have no problem with that, but you know, it seems like I was there 3 years in Calgary. I loved it there, you know.
I did an interview with Dr. D. David Schultz about a week and a half ago, and he said without question Stampede Wrestling was his favorite territory he ever worked. Are you surprised that he said that? And is there any stories you could share with us about him?
David Schultz, Dr. D. Yeah, he had a real successful run here. I think he worked from about 1980 to 1984 here. Yeah, he was a good performer. You know, very strong on the mic. You know, one of the best talkers in the industry. You know, I think that's why the AWA recruited him from Stampede, and he did very well there, working against Hulk Hogan, I think, and then WWF picked him up as well when they brought Hulk over, and then raided the AWA of a lot of their talent. And David Schultz was one of the first ones they picked. You know, he had incredible heat, and he was so strong on the mic, and he was tough. He could back himself up in the ring as well. So, but he was very successful. He made us a lot of money. he could be temperamental at times, David, and I think he was very edgy. And if he didn't like you, he didn't give you very much, but he made a lot of money here, and um, he was over great as a heel, and then when the time was right, we turned him into a baby face. We had kind of a falling out with John Foley, and I think it was Duke Myers and Kerry Brown, and it was kind of an unbelievable transition where he became a baby face and tag teamed with his arch rival Leo Burke to fight Foley's Army, and just incredible. We had about 3 months of sellouts in Calgary and Edmonton, and shows all over. It was probably some of the best business Stampede ever did, and a lot of that we attributed to Dr. D and just how well over he was with the fans, and in a sense, he was kind of like a version of Randy Orton and Steve Austin that got over years later as kind of unpredictable, cold heel, but people identified that with that, and that's why I think he was over so well with the fans. People liked that David showed no respect to anybody and would tell his boss off or tell a police officer off or anybody. He just had sort of no respect for authority and did things his way, and that got over very well, in Stampede, and it propelled him to do very well in the AWA and WWF. But David was not a guy to mess around with, and at times he could be unpredictable, and if something pissed him off, he didn't hold back, and a few guys bore the wrath of his anger, I guess, sometimes, and you had to be kind of careful with David. He could be temperamental and unpredictable, yet he was very loyal to the business and the promotion, and he would go out of his way to protect it. But I remember one incident, though, Devin. We did sort of an angle, and I think David was teaming up with Dynamite as heels against Brett and Bruce in a tag match, and just incredible heat. And Alexander Scott, who was a heel referee at the time, was reffing the match, and he had incredible heat, especially with Bruce, but the whole Hart family, and a lot of fans believed he was getting paid off by John Foley, and using his power to suspend some of the baby faces and help the heels get over. But it was all very subtly done, but it just had so much incredible heat. So there was an angle where Dynamite and Dr. D worked with Brett and Bruce in the match, and he had screwed Brett and Bruce and cost them the match, and the place just went nuts. The whole pavilion. There were fans kind of rioting and throwing chairs, and they were just so outraged that Sandy Scott had screwed Brett and Bruce. So anyway, Foley had passed Sandy his cane, and he used it to club Bruce, and Bruce was on the mat basically selling, and Dynamite and Schultz, I think, were putting the boots to Brett at the time. So anyway, some big fan jumped into the ring. I don't know how he got past security, but big guy, and he jumped into the ring, I think, to try and protect Bruce or try and pull Sandy Scott off Bruce. And David saw him coming, and he used this cane and just, I think the guy was coming in the ring, and David clocked him with a punch, saw him coming, and boom, just hit him right in the jaw, and the guy folded and went down. And then David took Foley's cane and clubbed this guy in the back of the head about 2-3 times, and Bruce was underneath the guy. Bruce was basically on the mat. This guy was on top of him after Schultz had KO'd him, and then clubbed him about 3 times with the cane, and Bruce thought the guy was going to die, because he could just feel the impact of the cane hitting this guy's his head. And anyway, luckily the other baby faces, I think he jumped in the ring, and they kind of cleared the ring, and they got this fan out of there. But that could have been pretty fatal, could have fractured his skull. But David was just not a guy to mess around with. You know, he could be pretty volatile and unpredictable. If any fans got too close to him, and if any of the wrestlers pissed him off, so you wanted to stay on his good side for sure. But you know, he made a lot of money for us and was a huge star that was very integral, you know, in making Stampede one of the hottest territories. I definitely look at him and Dynamite and Davey and Leo Burke and some of them, you know, that just had incredible drawing power and added so much variety to our shows and made Stampede such a hot promotion in the 80s.
If you could share any stories about Andre the Giant.
Andre, yeah, you know, what an incredible athlete, you know, larger than life figure. He worked quite a few times for my dad. He would come in during the Stampede shows and, you know, always a great draw, you know, and what can you say about Andre? He was just an incredible performer, you know, who had great agility, knew how to wrestle. He wasn't just sort of a lumbering giant that got over because of his size. You know, he had worked a lot in France and Europe, and then really learned how to wrestle in Japan. You know, long before he even came to North America. You know, but he was a skilled athlete. You know, like for his size, he was incredibly gifted and could perform well in the ring, and not a guy that you took liberties with. But Andre could be temperamental at times. You know, you just never knew what you were dealing with. He seemed to be more gentle and at ease with females, you know, if especially if you know, you're at a bar or a restaurant or a festive party or something. You know, Andre was very very much at ease, you know, in a party like atmosphere, and he would buy rounds and rounds of drinks and champagne, you know, for everybody. In that sense, he was very generous. But other times, you know, he could be very moody and standoffish. You know, I think he's very self-conscious about being someone that was unique and not being looked at as a freak, you know, or someone that was different from others, you know. So at times he wasn't very approachable about making public appearances or signing autographs. He could be very distant in that sense. And, you know, I remember one story, and it was just to me kind of a unfortunate thing. There was he was wrestling at one of the first WWF shows here, I think in 1984, I think. It was after Stampede had closed, and Andre had been working in the main event, I think, against Kamala. And, you know, it was the end of the show, and I think he just wanted to get back to his hotel. And there were, you know, some fan had gotten his son, all the way into the back area of the dressing rooms. I don't know how he got through security, but he brought his son, you know, into the waiting area there, you know, close to where the dressing rooms were, and it asked me if I could get an autograph of Andre the Giant for his son, you know, and I said, I don't know if I can or not, you know, because I knew Andre could be pretty standoffish, and you know, if he was in a hurry just to get back to his hotel or get to the bar to join his friends, you know. So, but I remember approaching Andre, said, there's a fan here, and he wanted to know if you would sign his autograph for his son. And Andre just kind of nodded like no, and walked right past the fan, you know, and the guy saw that too. And I just felt kind of embarrassed. I thought, you know what, it wasn't like there was 50 people there, and if you had to sign one autograph, you'd have to sign them all. It was just one father there with his kid, you know, who had waited and stuck around to the end of the show after all the fans had left, and you know, Andre had even just stopped and signed it. It might have taken 10 seconds of his time, but that's the way he was, you know. You know, at times he could be very sociable, and you know, if he had some friends around him, and he could be drinking beers or throwing wines back, you know, and he could drink so much, you know, it was incredible. He could drink a dozen beers in 30 minutes on a road trip, where, you know, half an hour into a plane taking off, you know. Andre could just drink and drink, and I think he could be very merry and sociable at times, but at other times, he could be pretty moody and standoffish, and not the easiest guy to negotiate with. So for my dad, it was hard to get Andre to appear at some of our functions, for the Stampede, like the grandstand show or the parade. He really didn't want to be a part of that. He just wanted time to himself, but he didn't realize those things were helping us draw fans to the show, and get some PR and media attention. And Andre quite often would limit his availability for those things. So that was sometimes frustrating for my dad, and I think a lot of promoters that dealt with him. But an incredible athlete and a great performer, no doubt.
Do you have any recollections of Ed Whalen and the influence that he was on the TV product? What are your thoughts on him? He's somewhat of a
Yeah, he was huge, and he was almost the star of the show, to the extent that a couple of times he quit because they fell out with everybody, and Bruce and Stu and that, and they got some other guys in to replace him, and the viewing figures went down and down, and they had to bring Stu back. They had to bring Ed Whalen back, and he was perfect. He was so laid back, and it came so easy to him. Describing the action, it was so easy to him, and his famous catchphrase, at the end of the show was good. But a funny thing happened, Ed wore a hairpiece, he wore a wig, but also he in the dressing room before your match, it would say Robbie Stewart against Gamma Singh, 6 off and 6 on. In other words, you do 6 minutes before the TV kicks in, and then the TV's on for the last 6 minutes. Now, obviously, we don't carry watches around in there, so the thing was where at the 6-minute point, Ed would take his glasses off and put them on the table, and you knew then that you had to start doing all your shine spots, if TV's kicked in. But the fans got wise to it, and they started shouting, "Okay, you can do all your fancy shit now." Ed took his glasses off, so they got wise to it. And Ed would go upset. Ed would get upset about it.
Did you?
The fans would be shouting to him, "Oh, don't flip your wig, Ed. You're okay. It's all right. We know the script." And all this.
Wow, those were early smart fans.
They were.
Did you have any experience with Ed kind of flexing his muscle with his connections with the media in the area over storylines? We read a lot that he quit over or something along those lines over a storyline with Archie Goldie.
I don't know about that far back, but I know when I was there, if there was too much blood or if there's something that was over the top, Bruce was Bruce could have been over the top. He was kind of dangerous as a booker, to say the least. But there was things that Ed would not tolerate, and he got spray every time. When I was there, if there was too much blood or if there's something that was over the top, Bruce was Bruce could have been over the top. He was kind of dangerous as a booker, to say the least. But there was things that Ed would not tolerate, and he got spray every time. He got his way.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to also ask you, it's germane that you mentioned Bruce Hart, your memories of teaming with him, as well as if you could expand on your thoughts of him as a booker, creative person.
Yeah, Bruce was very creative, very intelligent man. They all are. They're all very intelligent people, the Hart family, not every one of them, and all university educated and so on. Bruce was a very imaginative booker, and when I got there, it was kind of opened my eyes to what the business really could be or should be like, if you like. He went over the top sometimes. Sometimes he just kind of made a fool of some people, which I didn't respect him for, me included sometimes. And he very petulant. If he didn't get his own way, he'd stomp the ground like a little kid, and to the point where Stu would come down on a Friday night and go, "What's this bullshit you're putting in the ring?" And he'd end up fighting with his own dad and stuff. Bruce didn't make many friends in the business. I speak to him now. I'm civil with him now. I kind of got on with him when I see him. But he didn't make many friends in the business because of The way he treated people, really. He kind of, everything was a big rib to him, you know.
And for the last group of people that were trained in the dungeon that are still pretty much fairly active today, would you say that would be Davy's son, Harry, TJ?
Yeah. It was frustrating, you know, because you were down there. There was a lot of guys in there that had really good potential. Could have been, should have. They could have been everything that TJ was. Harry was exceptional, and it pissed me off WWE didn't use him anywhere near to his capability. But there was a whole bunch of guys, including Rick Victor, as you know, but a lot of other guys that were, you know, as good as damn near anyone I've seen come up from NXT. You know, guys like yourself and others that had the size, the look, the amateur background, pretty good facials, all of that. So it's sad, you know, the JP had lots of charisma, Hotshot Johnny Devine or whatever he called himself. And, you know, anyone listening here probably don't know who the hell any of them are. Like, I really think I'm dreaming or bullshitting or something. It's kind of sad in another time and place. If those guys had been coming up back in the 80s when I was breaking in Dynamite,
there was more places to
Davey,
go.
or, you know, they had come up in the Pillman, Owen, Benoit era. I have no doubt those guys would have been, you know, guys everyone's talking about today, you know, like in the same vein as they're talking about a, you know, a Davey Boy or a Pillman or an Owen, you know, so.
Well, James, you know Bruce, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, I foresee Dynamite Kid, performers of our time. I always got along pretty good with Dynamite, and some of them was always on pretty good terms, and we may have exchanged a few potatoes and whatnot in our matches, but everything was pretty safe and not a lot of bullshit or anything, you know.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, you could fool anyone with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could wheel the radio and you think it was him.
Yeah, I remember there was...
Except you didn't talk long enough.
Yeah, there was a couple, I think, guys in the dungeon, I'm not going to say who, but they were prank calling. There was a bunch of prank calls going on back and forth between each other, and someone was stiffing someone in the basement, and then Bruce was just, I remember he just kind of like shrugged his shoulders and said, yeah, I don't know, this sounds like a convoluted web of lies and bullshit. Straightened out before something fucking goofy happens. We're all here to get along and be at our best. And I don't want to hear about any of this bullshit going on. But you remember he gave this little speech.
That's so perfect.
Who wants to come on the mat for the first rendezvous, as they shall say? He would two guys come on the mat, do 10 minutes or whatever, do the 15 bumps, and then usually do a round of applause, and the next guys would clap, and then. But he switched it up a lot. But yeah.
If you ever met Carlos Colon.
Oh my goodness, I know Carlos Colon so well. I will tell you about Carlos Colon. In the early 70s, he came here. He's from Puerto Rico. He and I traveled so many miles together in cars. We used to play cards in the back seat. We traveled from town to town. He was a very good worker, a high-flying wrestler. He went on with a guy named Victor Javico to Puerto Rico. They became promoters. I lost touch with him after that. But he has one distinction that I've always thought was important to clear up, is that Dave Rule was a well-known wrestler in Western Canada, and he was the booker for Stu Hart. And one night, Carlos Colon, I'll make this a short story. I could give you the details, but one night, and I've heard different versions, so I think it's important that the true version be told because I was there. We were traveling to Saskatoon, and Carlos and I were in the back seat of the car, and Dave Rule was the driver, and he was smoking a cigar, and the smell of the cigar was overwhelming. And Carlos asked him to put the cigar out, and he didn't put it out. And then Carlos put his window down a bit, and Dave Rule said to him, "Put that window back up." And they got into a difference, and then Dave Rule pulled the car over the side of the road. They both got out. It was a cold night. The ground was very slippery, the asphalt, and Carlos did not punch him. He slapped his face, and his feet, Dave Rules, went from under him. He went back and hit his head on the ground. He was unconscious for a moment or two. Another car with wrestlers was coming behind us a little ways, a few minutes behind. Took Carlos Colon and his friend from New York. I forgot his name now. If you brought it up, I'd remember. But they jumped in the car. They carried on. I picked up Dave Rule. I put him in the back seat of the car. He was still semi-unconscious. I drove him to Saskatoon. He finally came around, but he was still groggy. I put him in the hotel room. I checked him in, and he stayed all night. Next day, I went to his room to get him. Carlos Colon had nothing to do with him after that. And Dave Rule got a concussion and ended his career. And Dave Rule died, I think, a few years later, but severe concussion. But Carlos Colon, that's a story I wanted to get clear because that was absolutely the truth of what happened.
I was wondering if you could give us some of your memories of working for Stampede Wrestling here in Canada. I've heard you say in the past the pay wasn't the greatest, but how was your experience overall working for the Hearts?
The journeys were too long. Didn't like the Hearts very much, actually. I guess I like Bruce the best. No, Bruce, I got on very well with Brett. In actual fact, it was me that sort of arranged for Brett to actually work in Germany.
Interesting.
The Kaiser, the German promoter, he actually came over to Canada to do some talent scouting, sort of bring some people back to the German tournaments. And I was the only one that he actually wanted. And he thought I was an American for whatever reason. But anyway, he wanted me to come, and I made one of the conditions that he made one of the conditions of me going out there. Conditions: if you take me, you're going to take Brett. He wasn't interested in that. He wasn't interested in any of them. And Brett said to me, he said, "Do you think you could bring Neidhart out as well?" I said, "As a favor to you, yeah." So it was me that actually got Neidhart and Brett out there. Then Keith Hart came to me and he said, you got Brett and Neidhart out there. He said, "Do you think you'd take?" He said, "Do you think you could get me out there?" I said, "I could." He said, "Will you?" I said, "No." And he said, "Why not?" I said, "I don't like you." But anyway, he was determined to do it. He was determined to actually go out there. And he actually paid himself and went to the tournaments, and he came there every night. And the booker out there, he said, "This guy," he said, "isn't much bigger than you." He said, he said, "He's hanging about and whatever." He said, like he's Bret Hart's brother. He said, "Do you want to work with him?" I said, if you use him, I said, "I'm going." And I tell you what, I was one of the biggest draws they had. I had a gold cup from them, actually. It's the best attraction of the Hanover tournament. And I said, if you use him at all, I said, I'm not wrestling with him. I said, but if you use him at all, I said, I'm back. I'm gone. I'm history. and they wanted me to sign a contract to go back there for the next year. And that was one of the stipulations. I said, I'll sign the contract and I'll come back next year, but you don't use him. I don't like the guy. And I never made, I mean, if I like somebody, okay, I like them. I let them know I like them. If I don't like them, I like to let them know too. So there's no, there's no sort of question about it or anything like that. Then it's up to them to keep out of my way if they want to stay safe.
God, I worked with Leo a lot. Leo was the easiest. And this is a funny story because I was working for Stu in Calgary. It's like in 1988, I didn't even work in the States. 89, I didn't work in the States. 92, most of the year, I didn't work in the States. But I worked in South Africa, and then I come back and worked for Stu Hart, which loved working there. The most fun. I worked there like 5 months, and I went and worked for Baba. Then I come off that tour, went back to, then went to the Maritimes. They had already started. Then I went back for Stu for the end of the year. But when I was in the Maritimes, I stayed at the old St. Regis Hotel. Had the bathroom at the end of the hallway or whatever, or fourth floor, whatever the hell it was, which was awesome, right downtown. And I'd jump on the train and never paid, and go like 4 blocks down to BJ's gym, who was married to one of the older sisters. Yeah. So I got to go to BJ's gym every day. Loved that. And then you had the free trans with the vans. So, oh my God. And you're at the Tit Bar every night. Oh my God. So it was just the greatest time. And they had the long traditional wrestling shows. Hell, most of the guys that were there, hell, they're all dead now. Hell, Benoit was there, Johnny Smith was there, Jerry Morrill drove the van, the Cuban, Gary Albright, Bad News was there, Biff Wellington, Brute Pillman was there, Terry Brown was there. I just had the time of my life there. And they hated me at first because I was American. American took a Canadian boy's job, right? But by 2 weeks, I was leading the troops. Okay, boys, we're going out. This is where we're going,
When you were in Stampede, I guess it would have been Bruce booking?
Yes, yeah, Bruce was booking. So he had me do sort of a little bit queer gimmick, And me and Kerry Brown were the Midnight Cowboys, which Kerry hated it because he was been there for years and going to Japan as like a tough guy. And so as a rib to Kerry, they had him wearing pink and everything. So I just treated it as a rib. It didn't matter. It ain't real. Get in, get out, have a good time. And Calgary was great.
Yeah,
I met Pillman there, you know. And in Pillman, I work with a lot of Pillman on TV. And I didn't even know, Cornette told me he was on the booking committee and stuff there. And he said I got like banned from TV for a while because my matches were too good.
In Stampede?
No, this is on. This is for WCW.
Okay.
Because Pillman, he got into WCW, and I had like 3 straight shows with him on TV, and just destroyed. It was so fucking good. Well, we're just having a good time. I just loving wrestling. He was wrestling. I said, hit me hard, beat the shit. Let's be fucking snug out there. Make him believe this son of a bitch. At the end, he'd win. You know what I mean? But it was a goddamn contest, and. He was a good boy. But yeah, Bruce was booking, and I've been on his Heartbeat radio show a bunch. I talked to him yesterday because Bob Johnson got him on the phone, so I was talking to Bruce. So Bruce had a lot of good creative ideas, and they had all them Hart brothers, and they were all polar opposites. It was just awesome. Now, each one was so different and everything. And I saw Ross here thing, and then David Schultz was talking, and Ross was there, and Bob Johnson was sitting in front of me and everything. And but I love my time in Cat. There ain't a place I didn't not like working at. I just love being in the wrestling business. What's your position? Well, okay, be main eventer. Okay, if that's what you want. Be a babyface. Okay, if that's what you want. Can you do tag? I can do anything you want. And if you don't like it, tell me what you do want, and I'll change it. This ain't real.
And do you have a Stu Hart impression?
Hannibal, you big fucking stud, you motherfucker. Oh shit. Anyway, but I think when I was in the wrestling, he was the the most, God damn it, anyway, he was the most imitated guy. I never heard one bad word about Stu Hart. Everybody loved fucking Stu Hart. He was the most imitated guy in wrestling.
Would you go over there for the Sunday dinners ever?
Oh no. I was busy. I was a get in trouble guy.
Really?
Not.
Didn't expect that out of you.
No, I mean no get in trouble guy as far as females. So that's you know the deal. So that was that. So but I love fucking Stu. And we'd be doing promos at Friday night, right? And all of a sudden, I hear, hey, come here, you bastard. And he's trying to hook some nachos on the floor. There's part of a hot dog. He's going to get it and get that last bite. It's fucking awesome. And he always paid me, even though they weren't doing good. This is when Vince supposedly bought him out, made a couple payments. They started back, right?
Yeah.
And worked for him, and Stu always paid me more than my guarantee. Never heard him raise his voice, you know, and was just awesome to work for.
What are your memories of Stampede Wrestling?
Stampede Wrestling, well, I think I told everybody about it in the 2015 WWE Hall of Fame. But the true story was, I never heard of Stu Hart in my life. And I was working for the Vachons at Carpentier for a company called Grand Prix out of Montreal in 1972-73. They said to us, you can stay on if you like, but would rather you go away and for a few years, and we'll bring you back so you're fresh. So we hopped on the plane and landed in Calgary. Never heard of Stu Hart, never heard of Stampede. That night we hit the dressing room. In Calgary, there's the fairgrounds with two arenas. One's called the Pavilion and the other one's called the Corral, which is the Saddle Dome now, and WWE do pay-per-views at it. So it's Friday night, television taping in the Pavilion. Archie Goldie, the Mongolian stomper, comes and tells us what he wants us to do. We're working against the champions. I can't remember their names, and we got disqualified. We beat them up. We had the New Zealand flag, beat them up, and they were laying in the ring. Next minute, these young kids get thrown in the ring. You know, kids 10 years, 12 years old. I don't know who they are, but the guy who's throwing them in, I've known for many years from Australia, who was Abdullah the Butcher. Two of these kids were bleeding. These kids were 10 and 12. They were I didn't know, but they were the Hart sons. And then Abdullah threw them in the ring, and he said, beat him up, champ. Because he knew that we're trying to get over. First night in, television taping. So we beat him up. When we headed to the dressing room, this is my first meeting, there's Stu standing at the entrance to the dressing room. He says, what the hell are you doing? I said, what? They said, Abby threw these kids, and he said, put the boot to them. And with Abby throwing them in, we thought, well, it's all cool. And then he said, well, they're my kids. And of course, I got a hell of a show. I said, sorry, sir, blah, 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 blah. You know, I didn't even know about Stu Hart and the dungeon. I hadn't even heard of him. Anyhow, that was played on Saturday morning at Stampede Wrestling. You know, it was played every Saturday morning on local television, and that weekend was a double shot. Sunday was in the Corral. They did that about 3 times a year, and we came back on Sunday in that Corral, and that was the first time we started getting pelted. We didn't have the drawing heat, where you can put asses in seats, but we had steam already the 3rd day in the territory. That was the beginning of my year and a half to 2 years of Stampede Wrestling, and along that 2 years, many stories can be told. Many, many stories. Butcher Me was the smallest guys in the territory at the time. And this was 74, around 74. We were the smallest. Archie Goldie was about 260. There was Abdullah. Everybody was John Quinn, Big John Quinn, 6'6" or 6'8", 325. Anyhow, turning the tables now. 79, we're in Hawaii, we're going to Japan, we had 6 weeks to fill in before we go into a territory. I called up Stu, and I said, I got 6 weeks off. He said, can we come in? He says, certainly come in. Tommy Billington had just come into the territory. He'd been there about 6 months, and that's the Dynamite Kid. Well, I came in that night, looked in the dressing room. All of a sudden, Butch and me are the biggest guys in the dressing room. Butch is about 240, 235, and I'm about 225, 230 at the time. And I look around, I think, this is strange here. We're the biggest. There's all these guys 175, 180 pounds. But then I walked out and looked in the pavilion, and that place was jam-packed. I went out and watched Tommy Billington's match, a Dynamite Kids match, and I saw why. He was jumping. It was a cage match against another Englishman, and he was coming off the top of the cage right across the ring, doing crazy stuff. That's when my first, Davey Boy hadn't even come. He came a year and a half later, and in '79, Brett had just started. That was his first year, and he started late '78, and that was his first year in the business. And in that 6 weeks, we teamed up with Tommy Bullens, and we had this sort of British connection because we're all under the Queen. God save the Queen. And we worked against the Hart family. And in 2 shows, it was Stu worked. We actually can say that in Edmonton and in Calgary, we worked in the 6-man against Stu, and we felt those sliders, the punches. That's my remembrance. Many stories of that territory. That was one of the biggest rib territories there was. If kids today had the ribs played on them, the hearts played on them, they'd be packing their bags and getting out of the business.
What Bad News Brown was like to deal with?
Bad News, tough guy, legitimately a great athlete, bronze medal winner in the 1976 Olympics in Montreal and Pan Am champion in judo. Probably one of the toughest guys in the business. He knew judo very well. He knew street fighting very well. He's just not a guy you messed with in the ring. He worked for my dad from about 1981 to 87 when he finally went to the WWE. So he's a whole story in himself. I have a lot of respect for him. He was a great conditioned athlete, very tough in the ring, anywhere basically, and you didn't take liberties with him. He could do a lot of damage with you. He was difficult to deal with at times, and I can't go into a long story with him, but maybe part of it was his style in Japan, where they did a lot more brawling and fighting outside the ring, basically. But when he was here, at times he could be uncontrollable. Sometimes he'd be fighting outside the ring and a little too close to the fans, and then if one of the fans hit him or went after him because he was using a chair on somebody, or mauling one of the baby faces, outside the ring, the commission then would suspend him, and sometimes it's suspend my dad. So sometimes Alan was he just had a short leash, and he didn't control his actions enough, because he was getting into altercations with fans and constantly getting suspended, and a lot of times he didn't follow orders. We would tell him, don't be fighting outside the ring, keep your distance from fans because you've already been targeted or suspended, and the commission's basically got a hard on for you. And sometimes he just didn't listen, and he kind of did things his way. So he did have some box office when he first came in. I remember he had some incredible street fights and cage matches with Brett and Dynamite, especially with Dynamite and even Davey Boy. But a lot of the other baby faces he just didn't sell for, and his motto seemed to be, well, you can get color for me, but I'm not going to get color for you. And if he's not selling for these guys and taking 80% of the match, then it's hard for these guys to get over, no matter what the outcome was. And unfortunately, I think he just took too much from guys that he was working with. He didn't sell enough for them or want to put guys over, and he was protecting his own image, more than doing what was best with the promotion. And so that way, he unfortunately had a lot of heat with different boys, and a lot of guys didn't actually feel comfortable working with him. And but he had a reputation though as a really tough guy and someone you didn't mess with, and I think that's what helped him get booked in WWE. Because they saw him sort of as a badass street fighter from Harlem and a different type of heel, and that's why they brought him in to work with Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. And and he's very good on the interviews. He had an incredible heat. Because he could be very intimidating, very powerful. When he did his interviews on Stampede, he didn't have good rapport with Ed Whalen. Ed was quite intimidated by Alan. They didn't have good rapport, and Alan unfortunately didn't gel very well with Ed. And Ed was the host of the show, and you had to kind of give him that respect, that leverage. If he wanted to cut the interview off or pull the mic away from you, you had to kind of give him that leeway, because he was the host of Stampede Wrestling and a pretty iconic figure as a media broadcaster in the city. And Alan didn't really give that much to Ed. He just thought Ed was an announcer who didn't respect the wrestlers enough. So there definitely was a lot of friction between them. And, after Alan had been suspended numerous times by the commission, and the promotion had gotten a lot of bad publicity over what was going on in the ring. Ed, I think, took a lot of that to heart, and he never ever felt comfortable interviewing Alan or being around him. So a lot of pros and cons about Alan, but again, I could do a separate podcast on him completely. But undeniably, very tough guy that you didn't want to mess around with.
Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with Keith Hart, who is the one Hart we have not talked to yet this weekend, and it's a pleasure to finally meet him, because when I was training at the dungeon, he wasn't around very much, but he was an amateur wrestler, wrestled for the University of Saskatchewan, made it to the college finals. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about your amateur career before we get into your pro career?
Sure. We started out wrestling when we were kids. My dad put us at the YMCA. He was on the road a lot, and there was a good coach there named Harold Evans, coached a lot of good wrestlers, came out of Alberta at that time. So I wrestled for Harold Evans as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, and then when I got out of high school, there was actually no wrestling club at our high school, so I didn't get a chance to wrestle much in high school. And then I went out to U of S. It was actually my third year at university. I didn't wrestle for U of C in Calgary, but so I went to U of S and I was just a walk-on. I had been out of school wrestling for probably 5 or 6 years, and I was pretty nervous about going on because everybody had this. They thought, oh, you're Stu Hart's son. You're going to be, they're going to tear your head off, and they bring out their best performance for you, and it's pretty intimidating because I hadn't wrestled for a long time. And that first year back at U of S wrestling was really hard, and so because I was pretty rusty, but I came on and I made the team, and I was pretty proud. I was doing it. I thought my dad. I knew he was really proud of it in Calgary. It was a good chance for me to get back on the mat away from all the fanfare of Calgary, because Stampede Wrestling was going so strong there. But then the second year I really found my stride and did really well. And I think had I wrestled steady right through, if we had a high school team, and might have gone a lot farther, but I was quite happy to go to the Canada finals and very proud that my dad had a chance to see me wrestle, and it just continued. And then when I got out of university, it was always a condition of our employment with Stampede Wrestling that if you didn't go to university, you couldn't wrestle for Stampede. So I got out of university. It's like, okay, now I've paid my dues. Can I wrestle full time? And they put me on the card, and I had to work my way through just like any new boy, just find my way from the bottom up. So.
And at one point in time, I guess you were even one of the top stars as well as the booker for the company.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. It seems like a different lifetime, but there was a few guys started out with me in the gym same time as Gamma Singh and Ricky Martel were the two notables. A guy named Art Wilderman, who was national amateur champion, university champion. And we all started out together, and I remember being told, I never got the title or anything, but Bob Leonard, who was the writer for Ring magazine back then, took probably more pictures of wrestlers than any other man. He congratulated me in a ceremony for being the Ring Wrestling magazine Rookie of the year I started. So I was like, wow, that was pretty impressive. And at that time I was like all these other guys, hoping to become a world champion, just like Harry and Harry Smith, my nephew, and I had the hopes and dreams of going all the way. And I remember when Hulk Hogan was just coming onto the scene and making the big money, and we were thinking, wow, if we could just make $50,000 a year as wrestlers, we'd be so rich. We'd have so much wealth and so much riches that we wouldn't know how to spend all that money. And we were riding around in the vans and discussing about whether some guys were taking steroids or doing that. It's like, would it be worth it to? And I remember with Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy and debating with them whether it was worth taking steroids to, if you could make that much money or not. And it was kind of a fork in the road there. And I didn't take that fork in the road. I didn't get the excess, the great big body that some of the guys got, and kind of stayed close to home.
You ended up, I guess, becoming a firefighter?
Yeah, I wrestled. I got a publication that a guy gave me documenting all my matches. I didn't realize I had some like about 1,700 matches. I wrestled in Japan and Germany and Texas, Hawaii, and a lot of different places, because you can't stay in one territory forever. But I was like, you hear some of these hockey players, venerable old hockey players, and they have 1,000 games. I was like, geez, that's a lot of matches, 1,700 matches. We were fighting almost every night, and it was a lot of miles and a lot of bumps and bruises. And the training, for every bump you take in the ring, you probably take 1,000, on the mat in the
particularly
gym.
On that dungeon mat.
There wasn't too much cushion left in it, and it was pretty stiff and starchy from cat piss and dog piss and the animals that Stu had around the house. And but you pay your price, and then by the time I was getting to be about 30, I blew my knee out pretty bad in about 77. I was completely blown out, and I started realizing that I better start making some other plans. And I put an application in. Everybody at the gym there, BJ's gym, was putting in applications for the Calgary Fire Department. Whether you're, didn't matter who you were, and had to be 300 guys working out there at the gym, and 200 of them were trying to get on the fire department. So I thought, well, this sounds like a pretty good plan. I put an application in, and I got on just about on my 30th birthday. And I remember Bruce and I used to share a condo, and I dropped him off at the gas station, and they were going on a trip to Regina and who knows where. And I was waving goodbye to him, and I was like, thank God I'm not doing another road trip. But it was, the fire department was a great thing for me. I still got to wrestle the odd time when they needed somebody, and I just joined a different team.
And you ended up having some matches for WWE. I remember definitely the Survivor Series when you were teaming with your brother. Any memories of that?
Oh yeah, I was just talking with some of the fans about that, and it was a great trip. It was just, that's about the only time I really wrestled with Owen. There's quite an age gap between Owen and me, and Brett and Bruce. We were all life was good then. We were all healthy and happy, and hadn't been any tragedies that split us into kind of fissured the family structure. So it was just a great chance, and my mom and dad were there, and we hadn't all been to New York since we were little kids, and when my dad used to take us out there, because that's where he met my mom. And it was a terrific match. The only thing, I was a little insulted when Vince wanted us to go to Hartford, stop in Hartford on the way to Boston, so that we could sort of verify or audition to whether we were able to step in the ring or not. Because I'd been firefighting for a few years, and I said, no, I'm not going to step in the ring and do an audition so you can judge me, and I wrestle my style, not your style. I'll just wing it when we get there, and I refuse to get in the ring with them and with any other young guys, or we just stop. Oh, like we're stopping at a museum or something, and we just had a look around. It's like, oh yeah, this is interesting, and yeah, no, I don't need to go in the ring.
And a lot of people actually over the years, they rate you in the top 3 of the brothers. I'm sure you're aware of that as far as wrestling ability.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. That's nice of you to stay. We all had different. We came up in a different era, each of us. And when I was wrestling, it was chain wrestling. I was influenced by Billy Robinson, and I started wrestling in England. I went to Lonsdale's gym in London and practiced with some of the shooters there. And I had a background in shooting just from my dad, maybe more than Brett, and certainly more than Brett and Bruce. And Owen wrestled a lot in college, so he was pretty handy. But my style of wrestling was chain wrestling, and we did. I love to have matches with guys like Les Thornton, Billy Robinson, and Jeff Ports, a lot of those English guys. And it was our whole purpose, and the person I was trying to please was my dad, who was my coach and also my boss. And we didn't do a lot of high spots. I didn't do any high flying stuff off the ropes, because that was considered not realistic. So if you watch any old Lancashire wrestling tapes with Billy Riley or Billy Joyce and Billy Robinson, those tapes, that was exactly how we wrestled. And what we did, the only difference between that and a shoot would be just the amount of pressure that you applied. So, but it was all chain wrestling. It was logical. Somebody put a hold on you, you'd figure out how to get out of it, and you'd counter it. He'd counter it, and it was all give and take. And we could have people watching it, and they couldn't see through your work. And you very seldom talked in the ring to each other, and you had an outcome in mind for the finish. And then you had so much time, and you went towards that, and you rode the response of the crowd, and you brought out the response in the crowd to make them a part of the match.
Now we're here, of course, for Owen Hart's induction into the George Tragos Luthez Hall of Fame tonight. How important is it to you for Owen to be inducted?
This is very important. Owen has been. First of all, as my brother, and everybody in the family regarded Owen as their favorite. Owen was a terrific guy. If you had a chance to know him, he was so much fun. But he was a genuine guy. He played a lot of jokes, but behind that facade of jokes and fun, he was a very serious father and family man, and he was very respectful to his heritage of being Stu and Helen Hart's youngest son. He picked up the best of everything that we had in our family, and he managed to ignore some of the silliness or I thought he was very humble, very much like my dad for humility, and very much like my mother for his fine sense of humor. And he didn't fall into the traps that the rest of us may have fallen into, of maybe being a little headstrong and arrogant. But terrific guy, and he married his childhood sweetheart, and they had a dream life, and it was so tragic that it was cut short unnecessarily by I think it was a control thing to force him to do something that he didn't want to do. He was against it, and that's another matter that we could really get into. It's a long discussion, but there was never any atonement, or they never got to the bottom of how that accident happened. And his widow Martha has, there's been some conflict there between Martha and Brett over whether Owen should be in the WWE Hall of Fame or not. It was in the papers just a little while ago. It's quite contentious, and Brett's come out, battled with Martha over it. But I think that with WWE and Vince McMahon being responsible for Owen's death, I think Martha is entitled, as Owen's wife and the keeper of Owen's legacy and the mother of Owen's children, to not, it's up to her if she wants Owen to be in that Hall of Fame, because McMahon ultimately is going to make profits out of it. It's a Hall of Fame designed for, it's not just to glorify Owen's legacy, but he still hasn't atoned and come clean about what happened and why, and he never will. And she doesn't want him, so that's her prerogative. But I think it's really important that Owen is given back to the fans who supported him. And this Hall of Fame here, I consider a legitimate shrine to the wrestlers of the world, not just North America. And you can see there's amateur wrestling, pro wrestling, it's all together, and it's all treated as equal. It's one big sort of genera. It's like the whole sport throughout. So anyway, I think it's good to see Owen to be put up on a pedestal here, where people can come up and see their heroes and read about them and get to know them. And I think this is the place he belongs here. And if he's never in the WWE, that's between Martha and McMahon to work that out.
And to close this off, I know you're very close with your father. Do you have any thoughts you could share with us about Stu?
Oh, yeah, my dad was such a great guy. We were so lucky, all of us Hearts and all the people in Calgary and in the wrestling world too, to be able to know on a personal basis such a really such a fine human being. He was a good role model. He was he was everything that he's portrayed to be. He never pretended. He was just a straight shooter. He's a real shooter too. He guzzled a lot of guys in the older day, but in his younger day, he'd take on all comers, and he'd take people, come up to the house to visit. And we had people from all over the world, from Germany, Japan, Ireland, and he'd invite him into the house for a cup of tea. Didn't matter who you were, didn't matter what race, what gender. He was very open-minded, and it was just such a great experience to have him and my mom as our parents. You just can't imagine the wonderful times we had.
Well, thanks a lot for taking the time to speak with us, and congratulations on your brother going into the Hall of Fame.
Thanks very much. Pleasure.
I went from Florida to Calgary at one point, which is quite a distance to go and quite a change in climate.
Yes.
What led to that happening?
What led to that happening? There was a kid named Tom Nash that went to Calgary Head. I think he went up there. He was a big Owen Hart fan. Like when we were training, I kind of bonded with this guy because he would like show me. He goes, "You gotta watch this." And it was all the Stampede wrestling tapes, and I loved it. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. All wrestling is garbage now. Stampede, this is the wrestling I want to do." It was just head above heels. I mean, I loved it. And he went and booked there, but I guess he had like a really bad experience, getting ribbed and this and that. And he wanted to go back again, but like Bruce Hart told him they needed a tag team. So he asked me if I wanted to go back with him and stuff. So I got booked as a tag team, drove all the way up in a car, came home in a Greyhound bus. But yeah, I don't know if he came home in a car or not, but I came home in a Greyhound bus. But it was that led up to it. But the whole character of the Black Heart things, that was like a Bruce Hart rib, anyways, too.
Yeah, he's known for that. What is your opinion on Bruce, anyways?
I like Bruce. A lot of people, I hear a lot of things, but Bruce has never been nothing but good to me. But then again, I mean, you can just read through when he's ribbing. The deal is where like the Blackheart things. Have you ever seen the Blackheart game?
Yeah.
Well, they have the whole black face with no eyes and no mouth that people see. Well, it's getting dark one day, and his girl was a sewer. They had a sewing room, and he goes, "Oh, try these on." So we slid them on. It looked like rob a 7-Eleven or something like that. The black mask. So the sun's setting, it's dark out. And Bruce is like, "Catch this football." I can't see crap. My partner, he was sitting there trying to catch a football, eating balls in the face, and Bruce is laughing. So right out the gate, I go, "Oh, well, Bruce." But then it turns out the whole Blackheart character were the bastard sons of Stu Hart, right? So yeah. Stu went around sleeping with a bunch of female wrestlers, and that's what happened. We're back to claim our throne.
Was Dynamite Kid still kicking around Stampede?
Dynamite was not there when I was there, but I think he came back in shortly after I left. Yeah. But Davey Boy was there.
Davey Boy, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get along with him?
Oh, Davey Boy, great. But my first day I ever met him, I'm sitting in the pavilion, minding my own business, scared to death. These guys all look like killers to me. I'm putting my boots on, and there was a guy called BG Holiday.
Yeah.
BG Holiday. Davey Boy comes in, and literally he was sitting next to me, Holiday, grabs him by his ears, and it just starts pounding his head on his wall. Now, I'm not, with his English accent, I couldn't quite make out half the things you heard. I heard something about my town, this, that. And then when he let him go, it's just a big blood stain on the back of the wall. He just slumped over. I was like, holy shit, I just kept lacing the other boot, like it never happened. That was the first time I ever met Davey, my impression of Davey Boy. But he's always been like awesome to me, cool. I miss him so much.
Was Brian Pillman working there?
No, Brian was already gone.
Oh, yeah. I guess Owen would have been there.
Owen just came back in. It was on his way back in. I guess he was leaving maybe WWF at the time. I think he was just coming back, yeah.
And what about Chris Benoit?
Benoit wasn't there. I didn't become friends with Benoit until like WCW.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So I guess you just spent your time in Calgary and found it was time to go back after.
Well, for me, why did I leave and all that? Yeah. Oh, my Calgary story is like they're infamous for ribs and stuff like that, just ribbing people. I never physically got ribbed or nothing like that. I think my rib was not getting paid because I'm going into a month there, and it was like, man, I got a kid at home, I got bills, like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to do this. I can't get by, and then they're supposed to put the straps on us, and I told my partner, I'm going home. I already bought a bus ticket. I bought a Greyhound bus ticket. I said, I can't stay here without money. I can't stay. And then, so being a good partner he went and stooged the office I was leaving and everything. Oh, my partner leaving, we can't win the belts, whatever. So they came, and then they were trying to pay me as I was leaving. If I knew what I knew now, I would have just took the money and still left. But but yeah, so that's why I go. It was just money. I couldn't afford to stay there. But we trained. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Training in the dungeon and in the pavilion and still making towns.
is no, you know, in fact, you just can't put a price on that. So it was totally worth it, and I don't regret any moment of that.
Was it still Stu doing most of the dungeon training then?
No. Bruce and Ben Bassarab and stuff would pop in.
Days of Stampede Wrestling and wrestling for Stampede.
Stampede Wrestling was a good event, and the people that performed in it were from all sides of the country, so it was a good place.
And did you get along well with Stu?
With who?
With Stu Hart.
Stu Hart and I were friends for a long time, and his whole family I knew, you know, most of them very well, and the others, you know, fairly well.
And what are your memories of Dynamite Kid from those days?
Dynamite Kid back during that year was really over up in that area, and had a good name for himself. And you know, there ain't a heck of a lot more you can add to that, but he was a good performer.
When you were initially trained for pro wrestling, who was it that actually trained you?
Stu Hart. Stu Hart was the first one that really smartened me up. In the dungeons, the famous dungeon, all it was really is a basement in his big house. He had a big 3-bedroom house, and it was in the basement.
What were your initial impressions of Stu? Because we've all heard the story that he was impressed with your arms when he met you for the first time.
Yeah, he picked me up at the airport, and he didn't have a driver, but he had a big, long Fleetwood, like a limo, Fleetwood. And I was getting my bag, and he goes, "You have big arms," and he was feeling my arms, and he talked like this. Stu's a great guy. Yeah.
What happened with his cats every time the phone rang? Somebody told me to ask you that.
Actually, I'm going to use this on my comedy routine, but it'll be funny to hear me do it live, I'm sure. But Stu had a way of talking, you know, you'd call him, you know, and a promoter would call him, or a wrestler to get booked, and he would be on the phone for an hour. He loved to talk. And it took a while for him to, between the to get the words out. You want to come, September, or you know, it was always like that, so it took forever. But he had a pencil, and he'd always had that pencil there, and he'd use that like a magic wand or something. You know, how just something to diddle with him on the phone all the time. The cat would come up there and circle around him, and he would play with the cat's ass or his balls with the eraser part of the pencil. So this went on forever. So finally he'd get out the phone, he'd throw the pencil down, the cat would leave, he would leave. As soon as the phone rang again, the cat would be there. Take off, zoom, he'd be right there by the telephone, waiting for Stu and the pencil thing.
Schultz gets me to go up for Stu, and I leave the beach. I've got a pair of jeans, one sweatshirt, because in Pensacola, that's about as cold as it's ever got. Exactly. No jacket, no heavy coat, nothing. I get up 3 days later, I'm drive. It takes about 3 days, 2.5, 3 days to get there. Because I had trouble at one of the borders. I went to the wrong place. And Stu said, "Hey, you're supposed to get crossing Sweetgrass in Montana." And I said, "Well, fuck, I'm in North Dakota." I didn't know. He said, "Hey, you got to go all the way over to Montana." So now I got to go all the way across the state of Montana to go to Sweetgrass. You know where that crossing is. So I get up there and I go to Stu's. "Hey, come on up to the house. I want to meet you." It's 35 below zero. It's freezing cold. Snow is knee deep. And I go up, ring the doorbell. Wait. I said, "Is anybody home?" Man, heck, I'm leaving. Just when I get almost to the, "Hey, come on up here." He didn't let me in the house. We stood out on his front porch. Now it's freezing cold, and my teeth are banging together. And he said, now he's gonna give me and I was going to the gym, working out and everything, doing things the right way, I thought. It's this big guy here, superstar Wayne Coleman. He never called you Billy Graham.
No, God, no.
So when I once called you many years ago, I said, hey, it's this superstar Wayne Coleman. So anyway, he's, you know how Stu would touch on you and rub on you.
Oh, yeah.
He had the big deltoids, like cantaloupes, and I put it up here, and he gets my arm up here, and then he runs his other arm across, and he's got me like this, and then I just held him.
It's more like a front face
And he said, hey, the big deltoids, and the traps and everything. Just cut the blood out.
You burned me over, brother.
So now he's got me like this, and I'm going, oh yeah, okay, I understand, yes.
I got it.
And I've told that story hundreds and hundreds of times to people about my first meeting of him, and he used you as his example of how he's big deltoids and these big traps. And then all the time Stu's talking, he's moving you in position. And I'd never seen that hole before, and I'll never forget it.